Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's council meeting. I'm Deputy Mayor Trent Sullivan, and I'll be chairing tonight in the absence of our Mayor Stephanie Asher, who has been granted a leave of absence. Council acknowledges the Wadawurrung people as the traditional owners of the land, waterways and skies in which we meet today. We pay our respects to the elders past and present, and we acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of our greater Geelong community today. This meeting is being broadcast on the internet, and the recording of this meeting will be published on Council's website. Well, good evening, everyone. And as I said, I'm Deputy Mayor Trent Sullivan, and I'll be chairing tonight's April Council meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone here at City Hall. And thanks to those of us who will be joining live on the live stream. It's great to have you with us. Before we consider the items of business on tonight's agenda, though, I would like to invite Councillor Kylie Grisbeck to address the meeting with regards to the recent visit to Geelong of the HMAS Parramatta. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. On behalf of Councillor Contell and I were lucky enough to be able to visit the HMAS Parramatta that was docked in Geelong Port over the weekend, and we were gifted a print of a painting that was done for the HMAS Parramatta when it was commissioned. It is a painting by a lady by the name of Leanne Watson, and she's a Durag woman. It's the Parramatta Eels. I'm not sure if people know NRL, but Parramatta Eels is where the ship was. That's their sort of sister NRL team, and it's eel country. So this particular print was given to the City of Greater Geelong in recognition of the visit from HMAS Parramatta to Geelong over the weekend. And I just wanted to say a quick thank you to Geelong Port, who made it happen, Brett Ince from the tourism team, instrumental, and the staff at the Mayor and Councillor's office, who were really instrumental in making the visit go smoothly. Over 150 Navy personnel were in Geelong over the weekend, and I'm sure they contributed much to the economy. I know I saw some down Little Mallop Street on Saturday evening, but they actually took part in many Anzac Day ceremonies across Geelong yesterday as well. So I wanted to make sure that we get this into the new building, I think, Martin. If we can get that up in the new building to commemorate the visit, that would be great. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Grisbeck. The Geelong certainly was honoured to have HMAS Parramatta over the weekend, especially over a weekend as sacred to include Anzac Day. Right, now,
sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I just want to say one more thing. The Commander, David Murphy, is a born and bred Corio boy, and it was really good for people to see what you can achieve no matter where you're born or bred. And David was lovely enough to give an addressing speech at the Norlane RSL yesterday, and that's his local RSL, and it was really good to see the little kids that were the scouts. That was him back 20 years ago, and they really got something to look up to. So, down Fairburn Drive, exactly. Thank you. Thanks, Deputy.
Yeah. Right, now returning to tonight's agenda. There have been a number of questions submitted in advance of the meeting, so we'll hear from as many community members during council question time as we can. We're particularly excited this evening to discuss the 2022-23 draft budget, as well as other important items on the agenda, so we'll get straight into it. Councillors will be asking for strict adherence on speaking times tonight. In regards to apologies and leaves of absence, tonight I ask that Councillor Asher and Councillor Mansfield be noted as apologies for tonight's meeting, as both councillors have been granted leaves of absence. Are there any further apologies of leaves of absence to be noted this evening? If not, I will move into declarations of conflict of interest. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest in relation to tonight's agenda?
Sullivan, I am going to declare a conflict for Central Geelong Marketing Review. However, I just wanted to explain why and also what actions I might take in the future. I'm declaring a conflict because I own a property in the CBD and there's potential benefit to me as a result of that. Having said that, I am going to seek further guidance on this matter for the future because I'm I'm calling a conflict tonight because I called a conflict at briefing on this matter, so I'll remain consistent. But there also is a likelihood that there may not be a conflict, and I will be considering that for future debates on this matter.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Well noted. If any further conflicts do arise at the meeting for any councillors, please make them known at the time. Now, confirmation of minutes. Can I please have a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 22nd of March 2022? Moved Councillor Howard, seconded Councillor Mason. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. So the next agenda item is public question and submission time. It is specifically available for questions and submissions rather than a forum for discussion. In accordance with this policy, we set aside 45 minutes for question time, providing for each person to address the council for 3 minutes. Questions and submissions, which were provided in writing prior to the meeting, will be considered first. After this, if time permits, which I believe it may this evening, members of the gallery will be given an opportunity to ask questions or make a submission. However, if it is in relation to an agenda item, councillors won't be able to provide you with an answer, as you'll be able to hear from us all on the item shortly when it comes up on the agenda. For those who have pre-submitted questions but are not present tonight, responses to your questions have been published on the council's website and will also be emailed to you directly. It's also important to note that each councillor has read the questions that have been sent in. So for tonight's meeting, we have received 4 pre-submitted questions from 4 community members. Those individuals and the topics of interest are Ian Rabone, in regards to infringements issued, Main Beach Ocean Grove; Linda Tremberth, in regards to the mayoral allowance; Warren Chapman, in regards to Ocean Grove Main Beach accessibility; and Peter Goss, in regards to road numbering and public safety. May I have a show of hands if any of those 4 people are in the gallery this evening? Since none of those 4 are, be assured that their questions have been read and the answers will be published online and emailed directly to them. Now we have time remaining for questions and submissions from the gallery. May I have a show of hands of who would like to ask a question or make a submission? Sir, if you'd like to come forward, please. So we keep the meeting moving. We'd like to keep all questions and submissions as brief as possible, and we'll be entering into discussion should clarification be needed. And as a reminder, every person will be given 3 minutes to speak. So if you'd just like to state your name, sir, and then the floor is yours.
Peter Allen, I live in Morton Street in Geelong.
Welcome, Peter.
Now, at the last council meeting, I asked 3 questions relating or pertaining to the bike lanes, or the bike lanes that have actually been constructed. One of those questions, which was the first one, was partially answered on the night. The other 2 haven't been answered, and I have heard nothing, no emails, no anything in writing or any correspondence whatsoever on the other questions, and I'm wanting to know why is that?
Rightfully so. I apologise that we have not got back to you in time, Peter. Would you like to re-ask those 2 questions?
I don't have them with me at the moment. I'm just wondering why they weren't answered when pretty much...
I'll throw to our CEO, Mr. Martin Carter. I understand.
Thank you, Chair. And firstly, I should say, Peter, if you haven't got an answer, I can only apologise for that. We'll take that on notice, and I'll ensure that we're able to provide those answers very promptly to you within a week.
Maybe make sure we get the contact details so we can answer promptly. Any further questions to be asked from the gallery? If we're all good? Excellent. That will then conclude question time for this evening. How question was that? Thank you again to everybody who did come and ask a question, and we will make every effort to get back to everybody with the allocated time. Petitions. Councillors, are there any petitions to be tabled this evening? If not, we'll go straight into section B for reports. Now, the first item we have on the agenda is the endorsement for exhibition proposed 22-23 to 25-26 budget. Do I have a mover? Councillor Aiken? And seconded, Councillor Harwood. Councillor Aiken.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. I do apologise about that. So, look, it's my pleasure tonight to, as the Chair of Finance, to submit to the public and to the Board of Council Group the 2022-23 to 25-26 budget. This is the second budget that we've had to release under the new rules associated with the Local Government Act, and that is that you create a one-year budget and you have to also forecast the additional 3 years associated with the budget. So we actually do it in 4-year cycles now. It's with great pleasure that I talk about the aims of what this council group attempted to try to do with the budget this particular year. We wanted to return to surplus after 2 years of significant deficits. We wanted to maintain our services that the council has in the community and not cut those services to be able to obtain a surplus budget. We wanted to keep our fee increases at or below CPI. We also want to respond to the community's need to renew our assets and, more importantly, to actually respond to new assets that are required with the significant population growth that's occurring in Geelong. And we also want to transition to a new rating strategy, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And importantly tonight, for the first time, we're actually announcing a major asset sales program for the City of Greater Geelong, where over the next 4 years we propose to sell assets which have a value currently of up to $52 million to use to reduce our borrowings. This budget that we are releasing to the public tonight for public consultation is a budget about repair. We're attempting to repair the finances of the City of Greater Geelong after the damage that has been undertaken by COVID in the last 2 years to our budget position. Importantly, we've recognised the need to actually have a surplus budget or break-even budget, and I congratulate the officers and the councillors who have actually reduced their demands of what they wanted to put in the budget so that we could meet that strategic need. I also draw attention to the community to actually look at the asset sales program. In local government, we cannot sell any asset that's owned by the community unless we do consult with the community. And there is a significant announcement tonight that we are looking at selling both the Civic car park and the Busport car parks. And what the council's intention is there is we've looked at our assets and we believe that those assets can still continue in that same form but under non-community ownership. And that ownership can deliver significant benefit to the CBD of Geelong, but importantly provide us with reduced borrowings as a council. We are committed to be financially prudent and responsible as elected officials, and tonight's budget is a very good example of that. We've found a balance between the new demands and the assets that the community has been asking for, and importantly, we are significantly responding to the issue that we will be talking in another item later tonight, but is an important impact on this budget, and that is this council understands we cannot continue to neglect the assets that currently exist within the City of Greater Geelong. We have approximately about $3.6 billion worth of assets on our books, and as early as only 2 years ago, we were spending roughly around $21 million per year on asset renewal. With tonight's council budget, we're talking about an asset renewal program of around about $45 million. That's a significant change from the historic levels that has been spent in Geelong on its assets. And it shows that we have listened to the community's demands that have been put to us about the need to respond to renewing assets and also building new assets. It should also be put into context of how this budget actually has been framed. We have just come from one of the most significant impact periods on people's finances with COVID. We have continued population growth. Geelong is actually now in the top 5 in Australia in terms of our population growth, and that is putting us under immense pressure and a challenge as a council group for our finances. We have ageing infrastructure, of course. We have EPA levies increasing. We have a rate cap regime of 1.75%. And importantly, we also have rampant house price revaluation that's occurring in Geelong. And I'm happy to try to talk to those outside of this agenda for the community, but I commend the work that everybody's done on this budget, especially the councillors that helped assist us to get to the point where we are this evening in presenting this budget, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aiken. Greatly appreciated. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. And thank you, Councillor Aiken, for jamming in a huge topic in 5 minutes and 10 seconds. Not easy. But quite simply, I think with the budget process we've gone through, again, it has been a clearly demonstrated commitment from the council group to commit to the 127 odd services that council are engaged in day-to-day business and making sure that they are done to the best of our ability and making sure the community are the benefactor of that. One of our the core function that we do is based around those services that we give to the community, and I think the budget reflects that. As Councillor Aiken rightly said, we're returning back to a balanced budget through the COVID period, unprecedented, but I think that alone is a significant achievement. Again, we've worked hard with the community for the capital projects, community grants, continue to give money back to the community where they're requesting and where it's probably best required. Again, been listening in those areas and responding accordingly. Again, a difficult process on occasions. Money is finite, as we know, but still I think the capital projects and community grants, etc., are unprecedented numbers again what we're returning. So we're meeting those community expectations in those areas. I think we touched on, while we're selling assets, surplus assets as such, the money that's being derived from those asset sales is going back into new council assets and also existing council assets in renewal programs predominantly. So, and we also have the submission review process for the community to come and express their views on the budget and what they might be, and if we can accommodate, we'll always do our best. But it's a pretty thin line, but we always look forward to the submissions from the community to come and give their feedback and their views. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harwood. The other councillors care to take comment on this item? Councillor Grisbeck, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It would be remiss of me not to talk about the proposal in the budget around the Northern Aquatic and Community Hub in Norlane. It is the construction of a facility. The total project's about just over $65 million. We're getting funding from the state government and the federal government of around $8.5 and $8.3 million each, but council's contributing $48.8 million, and we're looking at what the further funding might be to make this facility take it from a gas powered warm water to electricity, and what sustainability measures might look like going forward. So it's a huge, one of the biggest projects council will be involved in for quite some time, and I know Councillor Aiken and I are really proud of the whole councillor group for making decision to really invest in the northern parts of Geelong. We're really proud of that particular project. There is many more projects in the draft budget, but as Councillor Harwood had said, it's really for the community now to come to us and tell us what they think of this budget. We'll be putting on some, what I call little budget roadshows. We'll hopefully be in your area really soon, where that's just one way you can get in contact with us. We obviously have emails and phones, and it'll be on the website as well. We look forward to holding the budget review, submissions review process, as Councillor Harwood had said. We want to hear from the community about what they think of this budget. I'm really proud of the council law group and the council officers for working really well over the last six months or so to pull together this budget, and I think having a budget that now puts us back in the plus is a really good. It's a really good budget considering COVID for the last couple of years. So that nothing further, but congratulations, Councillor Aiken, on leading that portfolio, and Councillor Harwood for supporting that portfolio. We really appreciate your work. Thank you.
Councillor Grisbeck. Any other councillors to comment? Councillor Contell.
It's just a couple of comments. Again, I also thank everyone that's been engaged in developing this year's budget. It certainly has been a significant amount of time spent here working through that, but notwithstanding what has been said by my fellow councillors, particularly Councillor Harwood and Aitken, a lot of what this budget is continuing to do what we said we were going to do last year when we set up the 3-year budget. And I think, again, that is testament to the work that we put in to the work that we put in last year, and also the commitment that we're continuing to put into delivering what we did say we were going to do last year for this term of council. There are a number of new items, as has been touched on, and I think that's important, but what is also important is that we continue to bring the consistency that we said we would when we put the work in to develop the budget last year. Just one small project that I'd like to mention, and it is a very small project, but all the same for that area of Geelong it's important, and the feedback that I've been getting from the people in Bell Park has been around Hammersley Reserve, not over a year but over 10 years. And so we have been investing in Hammersley Reserve slowly but surely, and again this year it's proposed that we will invest a further $150,000 into Hammersley Reserve. So I do ask the community to look at the projects that are in there. Some of them are very impressive, as with the Northern Aquatic Centre, but some of them are small and very impressive and very valuable as well. So we appreciate your feedback on all of those. Once again, congratulations to the portfolio holders, and thank you very much to the officers for steering us through this period of time, which we know is always a challenge. So thank you very much.
Councillor Contell, any other comments? Councillor Maloney.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, it's a bit weird being back here. I just wanted to commend the team for pulling together this budget in such a strategic way. This is a very difficult task, and it has been a long slog, and I really sincerely appreciate the team for bringing this together in a way that helps us as a councillor group focus on the things that we really want. And it's really hard to distill that from the myriad of things that we get, each individual councillor receives from constituents all over the shop, and we are trying to wrangle that into a document that makes sense to everyone and gets everyone's needs met. This document has a particular environmental focus, and I commend councillors for engaging in that whittling down of that process to include a focus on our environment. Please note, for some of you who have been contacting us about the sustainability focus, note that this budget has a fiscal financial focus that is sustainable. So that means that we are making sure, as Councillor Grisbeck mentioned, that we have to be prudent financially in order to grow as a council long term. So I really look forward to chatting with folks at the roadshows in public. Hopefully I'll be able to garner some feedback from folks since the long, I guess, closure of all of us. So now that we're all out and about, so looking forward to seeing you all there. And thank you again to councillors and the City of Greater Geelong team. Thanks.
Councillor Maloney. Any councillors care to comment? Councillor Murray, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It's really a sigh of relief, I think, when we get to a point we are tonight. The amount of time and effort that goes in to the preparation of this budget, and I want to congratulate Michael Degina and his staff for the tireless work that they have done to contribute to this, and of course the councillor group that are here tonight, and others that aren't here, that put the time in. It's certainly a big commitment to get to the point where we are tonight. There's a couple of items that I'd perhaps like to rate or mention, and they're in the second year of the 4-year budget, so they were spoken about last year, so I'll keep it brief. But the continuation of Landy Field Pavilion facilities upgrade, and perhaps the inclusion of the Bowen Sports Academy to that facility, $2.3 million proposed in this year's budget, and and my favourite is the Chilwell Library. The money that was in last year's budget we thought might have covered the what was proposed there, but it hasn't, so there's a further contribution in this year's budget, and hopefully by September work will commence on the Chilwell Library, and which will be much anticipated by the original Save the Library group, Ron, that you were most part of. So fingers crossed that construction will start in September, and we look forward to that development. But and of course, there's many other items in this year's budget, but those two that I just wanted to highlight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Nelson.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. As everyone said, or most have said, that this is it's the second year of our 4-year budget, so not really much to talk about other than I just wanted to carry on from what Councillor Murray he said with regard to libraries, and we're building a $10 million facility down in Armstrong Creek, which will be great for the people down there to have access to library facilities, but then again put strain on council's ability to staff these libraries because, as we all know, and I keep beating on about it, the state government funding for operational of the libraries is the lowest it's been since 1983. So hands up to the state government to invest more in the operational cost of libraries, because the library staff are a vital part of libraries, and they need to fund them. But also, on a positive note, Armstrong Creek West, which is also called Mount Dunedin, probably don't ever say Armstrong Creek West to people that live in Mount Dunedin. They're getting a community hub for $8 million down there, which is great for them. It's a massive community down there now. Also, Mount Brandon master plan, over $1 million for that master plan, which is long overdue. If anyone knows where Mount Brandon is, it's the bottom part of Barrable Hills in Highton, the bottom part down near the river. It's been laying idle for over 20 years, and it's now our turn to see what the community want down there. So that whether that be a bridge over the across to Councillor Murray's ward and Councillor Quintel's ward, which will be really good for the Providence Winery down there and all those businesses down there. I think that's a great idea. Or maybe they just want a playground and a jetty and a car park and just to have some barbecue facilities. Also, $600,000 for the final Barrable Road footpath that I've been banging on about for about 8 years. It'll be a shared path, so bikes and pedestrians to go up Barrable Road from Scenic right up to Grantham. It's quite a dangerous part of Geelong now, since the inroad opened up about 12 years or so ago. And the final one is Scenic Road and Roslyn Road Roundabout. Every day, morning and afternoon, just gets busier and busier and busier with the school traffic because the public transport's so bad. The mums and dads have to drive their kids to school, and that roundabout there will be much needed, and probably traffic lights eventually, but I'd much prefer a roundabout. But I'll leave it to other councillors to have their say. Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Mason, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I also am mindful of libraries, and seeing they've been mentioned, we're so grateful we've got the Drysdale Library on the show now, on the drawing, beyond the drawing board, is actually being constructed. And of course the North Bellarine Pool, which many people on the Bellarine have been so anxious about. But I also heard what Councillor Aitken said, and I really commend all that have put the work into this, because and the councillor group has understood that we have to move into a surplus zone. We do have to repair the budget, but we've also been mindful of our declining assets and the need for renewal. And so that's really a very important thing that we've had to apply ourselves to. And of course, if you're spending money on renewal, you're not necessarily spending it on new capital works. So these are all the different things we've had to balance, and I think we've come to a really good point, and now look forward to community input. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason, and I thank the comments from all councillors here this evening. I will just add my support as well. This is an incredible budget. We're delivering a balanced budget, which also includes over $206 million of capital investment. It still links in with the strategic goals of our community plan. It maintains all the commitments made in our 4-year budget plan last year, and it provides further funding for sustainable-led initiatives. So it's ticking all the boxes, and it's bringing us back into the black. So I would definitely like to commend all councillors for all their great work, all the late nights involved, the CEO, the ELT, the finance team, all staff involved, plus of course all the community advocates who have been working tirelessly for certain projects over the years. And with that, I'll throw back to Councillor Aiken to close.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Sullivan, and look, and thank you to the council group. I've already said thank you for actually supporting the strategic directions that we're releasing tonight for this particular budget. It is important to also acknowledge the finance team led by Michael Daguna, the director, and in particular the leaders in the finance, Karen Osnecki and Narelle O'Shea, have done a power of work in this particular document. So on behalf of all councillors, I acknowledge them as well too. For the community to understand, we've been working on this document since October last year. I actually had a look at how many formal budget sessions we had, and I hope it's not an omen, but we had 13 formal budget sessions as a council group before we reached tonight's decision, and we had probably equal number of informal budget sessions associated with that as well too. This is business, and it is a big responsibility that we have. Our total income as a business is actually around $614 million proposed for this financial year. That's huge. It does also reflect that we're announcing a record capital spend tonight of $206 million. We're also announcing record borrowings to help pay for that capital spend, which is around $200 million. We've announced $52 million worth of asset sales to help bring our budget in line with more financially conservative measures, and importantly, we've tried to meet the demands that have been put on us by the community. The reality is we run a very tight line in the city of Greater Geelong. It is very difficult to bring new items before the city to be able to fund, and a good example of that is the Commonwealth Games. We will be under pressure as a council to be able to fund that particular project, and we do need to work with both the state and federal governments to be able to deliver a Commonwealth Games. We don't have any hidden fat or any hidden financial positions that can actually fund that new initiative, but it is a good example of how tight our finances are in the city of Greater Geelong. But I do believe that we should be commended, and I look forward to the public feedback we receive for this particular budget, which closes on the 24th of May, and we will formally respond to it in June as a council group.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aiken. With all that said, I'll put that now to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Thank you. Item number 2, Asset Plan 2022-32. Do I have a mover? Councillor Aiken, and a seconder, Councillor Harwood. Councillor Aiken, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Acting Mayor Sullivan. Look, an asset plan is actually a new heightened responsibility that council has associated with the Local Government Act, and as a consequence, we have developed a new 10-year asset plan strategy. This document has informed the council about how to spend its money associated with assets. So in other words, the purpose of the asset plan is actually how do we maintain and manage our assets, both existing and also new assets that we have to bring on as a council group. What this document has actually shown to us that we've had massive underspend in the city of Greater Geelong associated with our existing assets. And an example is the document which is available to the public to have a look at. We were spending about 52% of our total budgets on renewal. And the reality is that this document says to us that we need to spend about 80% of our available funds and maintenance into renewal. And as a consequence, this document has provided guidance to the council group to actually say we can't just keep building new assets and responding to new demands that are put before us by the community. We have actually in fact, this document, when it was first written, said we had $3.1 billion worth of assets. The budget that we are proposing to adopt actually has $3.7 billion worth of assets. It just shows you how quickly Geelong is growing at the present time with its population growth and the urban expansion that's occurring in Geelong. And we can't not spend the level of asset renewal that actually is demanded in this particular document. So I look forward. This one is also out for community consultation. It has already influenced the council group in that we understand we can't continue just to spend $26 million per year on asset renewals. We have to get up to a figure of around about $45 to $50 million per annum. And in fact, over the next few years, that is the endeavour that this council has set in terms of its financial positions and its asset management. We still will have multiple assets that require additional expenditure on them. We will still have assets that the community will say that we have not maintained as well as what we could. It is simply the burden of being a local government organisation that's been around for over 100 years. Our assets are significantly ageing in the city of Greater Geelong. We understand we have to put more resources financially and operationally into asset management, and this is what this plan attempts to do over the next 10 years. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aiken. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. As stated, the asset plan in recent times has become, I guess, one of the biggest challenges to the council. One is to actually find all the assets. Obviously, from many years ago, through amalgamation, there were a number of assets that were basically lost through time, through poor recording, and I guess over time we've sort of found assets that perhaps we didn't even realise that we had. And I think that's one of the big issues, is council actually accounting for every single asset it is responsible for has been a massive undertaking, and we see continues today. I think also the important point that's sort of been made is around obviously new assets that we either acquire through developments or we engage in ourselves in construction or development or similar. If the particular building costs, I'll use the simple terms of $100, that's fine to build it for $100, but it's going to cost $1,000 plus to maintain over the life of the building. So as we keep the asset plan growing, we continue to I guess, dig a hole in the budget for how we continue to keep those buildings and assets up to a standard that the community expects. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword in many respects, and probably the highest cost we're experiencing in asset plans and what we hold is in the basics of the footpaths, the roads, and the big one, drainage, for example, where we pour millions and millions of dollars into those assets and we never ever catch up to what we need to. So it's just, I guess, a point of where we find ourselves in a financial situation where we unfortunately, we do chase our tail a little bit in trying to make sure we meet the community expectations. And again, just the simple things like our open space and parklands, which has a high community expectations, they will be kept in good order, is not a cheap thing to do. So again, we'll seek some community feedback on the asset plan, and no doubt there'll be ideas and thoughts there that we can take on board and feedback through the organisation, and hope we get a better system and one the community can understand and also be a part of. Thank you.
So, thank you, Councillor Harwood. Any of the councillors care to comment on this item?
Maybe just a couple of words. It's really speaking to the converted. I know that, but all the same, it's worth saying that it's similar to the comments from Councillor Harwood and Aitken, but it's one thing to invest in new infrastructure. It's another then to understand what the whole of life costings will be for that infrastructure, and how you best manage that in the most efficient and effective manner. And as we know currently, whether it be local government, state, federal, or commercial and private enterprise, finding people to do all sorts of work, whether it be maintaining fleet and equipment, whether it be maintaining our parks and gardens, whether it be maintaining our fixed assets, is extremely difficult. Those resources are more and more difficult to come by, and with unemployment rates where they are currently, that's not about to ease anytime soon. However, the assets that we have that either the community or council use to do council business continue to wear and tear. And so there needs to be thought put into not only what maintenance has to occur over a period of time, but how that maintenance is executed. And so what we need to be looking at is not just doing that through our own resources, because we won't have enough resources to do that, is how we put maintenance programs and maintenance schedules, preventive maintenance schedules in place to maintain those assets in good measure so that the community get value for the investment that we are putting into them. I know that I'm perhaps reading a sermon there, but that's exactly what this is about. It's extremely important work because it's not just what you put in, it's more so about how you maintain those assets so that the community continues to get good value for them. That'll help stretch our budget and allow us to spread our budgets further in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Contel. The councillors care to comment? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Aiken to close. Councillor Aiken.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Sullivan. Yeah, look, I do want to thank the manager in this area, Travis Kerwood, for the work that he's put in. This has actually been a big project for him and his particular team. We're still identifying assets that we actually didn't even know that we had in the city of Greater Geelong, and Travis and his team have done a fantastic job to try to identify those assets and, more importantly, identify what state of repair or state of service they are as well too. This document also gets us to actually not just look at roads and footpaths. In fact, we've got about $1 billion worth of community social infrastructure projects as well too in this asset listing, and it actually talks about we do have to better manage our open space, our arts and cultural areas, our community infrastructure such as our libraries, and it really educates us and the community about what makes up the city of Greater Geelong's $3.7 billion worth of assets and how are we going to manage and maintain those over the next 10 years. So congratulations to the team involved. I look forward to the community's feedback on it because they can actually ask us to change where they want us to focus our asset renewal program. But importantly, we are going to be spending more money in the next 4-year cycle to actually try to address our responsibilities about asset management.
Councillor Aiken. And with that, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Motion's carried. Item number 3 on the agenda. 2021-22 loan borrowing provision of $34 million. Mover, Councillor Aiken. Seconded, Councillor Howard. Councillor Aiken, please.
Look, it's probably because we're coming towards the end of the financial year that there's so much work that actually happens in the finance team. In fact, we've got just as much work coming over the next 4 weeks because we try and rule the numbers off at the end of the financial year. But budgets, asset plans and now borrowing provisions and plans all require decisions of council around this particular time so that we can get into the market and actually get out there and understand our financial responsibilities. It is proposed with this particular loan provision of $34 million and we actually are endorsing the CEO to go out and get the best price model that we can for him. We're suggesting at least $17 million should be fixed for 10 years and $17 million should be principal and interest terms for 10 years as well too. So we're trying to spread our risk associated with interest rate changes as well too as the council, and this borrowing provision is part of how we manage the cash flow in the city of Greater Geelong. We don't borrow just for the sake of borrowing. Importantly, we only borrow for our capital spend. We do not borrow for operational in the city of Greater Geelong. and to deliver a capital spend of $206 million and borrowing a significant amount of that actually shows the prudent manner in which we manage our responsibilities in the city. And of course, we've already spoken about we are trying to reduce the overall value of our borrowings in the city of Greater Geelong by announcing a historic asset sales program tonight in the budget that was in the earlier item. But this is about our borrowings and our cash flow, and I look forward to seeing what rates can actually be locked in and secure some cheap finance for the significant work that the City of Greater Geelong is doing in the community for capital spend.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Councillor Harwood.
Mr. Sullivan, as Councillor Aiken has said, look, it's a process we need to go through to continue our capital projects, keeping them on track and, again, meeting the community expectations, which are exceedingly high as always. And quite simply, while the borrowings are substantial, this is a very strong and prudent council, and we have the capacity to borrow, we have the capacity to repay. Our liquidity ratio is in a good position, and we have the capacity, as I say, to meet these particular borrowing requirements and also continue to provide for the community. So that is the goal, and we'll continue to do that. And we'll continue to operate in a prudent manner to make sure that we don't exceed our limits or get the council into a position that's not tenable from a financial perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Any councillors care to comment? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Aiken to close.
Nothing further to add. Acting Mayor Sullivan. Yeah.
Aiken. With that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. Thank you all. All right, up to item number 4, COVID support package, hospitality support. I have a mover, Councillor Contell, and a seconder, Councillor Wisbeck. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Councillor Sullivan. Yes, as we're aware, last year much of our focus was on supporting our community in relation to COVID, particularly small business around hospitality and entertainment. We're struggling significantly, given that many of the workers based in the CBD were working from home, and all of the restrictions that state government had applied as a result of COVID. At our 23rd of November meeting, we once again adopted some COVID support, which took our total support for COVID up to $19.25 million. At that point in time, much of the support around hospitality and entertainment business was coming from the council in a whole range of areas, whether it be grants that we had out there for them, rate relief, fee waivers, free parking. We were doing all that we could to try to stimulate activity in the CBD, but also to try to support the businesses that were struggling at the time. What we asked of the CEO at that meeting was to investigate further support for retail, hospitality, and entertainment businesses through a voucher or refund scheme, and then report back to council by March. The reason we did that is because at the time there was successful programs being run in the Melbourne CBD, one called Melbourne Money and one called Melbourne Midweek Money, where there was rebates of up to 25%, 30% for various amounts of spend if people would come into the CBD. However, there was nothing in regional Victoria. The intent of the amendment that was moved that night, which was initiated by myself and supported by the council group, particularly Councillor Aitken, was that we do two things. We asked that officers look at what a program might look like if it was funded solely and wholly from council, but more so to put pressure on the state government to look more broadly than the Melbourne CBD and to look at the struggling businesses and economy in regional Victoria. To that extent, I think the work that we did, and obviously other councils as well, did put that pressure on state government. And fortunately, since then, in fact, as of the 29th of March, there has been a program now released by the state government which provides a 25% refund for when community members spend more than $40. at a hospitality or entertainment venue between Monday and Thursday. So in part, the work that we did on the 23rd of November in requesting that officers do this work has actually been successful because it's forced state government's hand. Having said that, there's also been some good work done by officers which will put us into a position that after this program has come to an end, which has some $60 million attached to it on a first come, first served basis, that if we feel there is a need for us to look at introducing our own council-funded program, we have some examples to work with, and we can then consider whether we need to initiate more stimulus such of that nature. So tonight's report is noting the support responsibility which was the request to the CEO on the 23rd of November to look into the matter. Secondly, that officers are indicating that spend is starting to come back to pre-COVID levels. Having said that, I think many of us would agree that that is not in all areas of Geelong, and that businesses are still struggling and will continue to struggle. We need to stay close to them and continue to work with them and support them. And thirdly, that we monitor this program that's now in situ by the state government, monitor its success and measure that, and continue to liaise amongst ourselves and small business owners to make sure they have got the support that they need. And once it comes to an end, we need to make a call on whether we need to introduce our own or put further pressure and lobby further with state government to extend the program, which has been so successful in Melbourne. And in fact, in the report here, you will note that past results of the City of Melbourne showed that 92% of diners said that the scheme was one of the main reasons for returning back to the Melbourne CBD at the time. So I think we could take a real tangible outcome out of that response. I'll leave it to others to contribute further.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Councillor Grisbeck.
Councillor Contell has superbly briefed us on this particular paper, so I don't think I have much more to add other than to say thank you to the officers and to Martin for this report. I think we're really proud of the $16.9 million of support packages that Council has provided to the community over the past 2 years. And I think we're in good stead if we needed to do this again. We have already done the work to look at what was successful and what the learnings are. So I think that's all about making sure the community and our businesses and our tourism sector is humming. And I think the last 2 weekends in Geelong and its surrounds have shown that we can get back to, hopefully at some point, some normality. So the writing's on the wall, and let's hope we can continue to improve that as we go. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Any other councillors care to comment? I'll throw back to Councillor Contell to close. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Councillor Sullivan. Just one correction, $19.25 million, Councillor Grisbeck. It's only a mere $2 million. But that's all good. It's significant on both accounts, so thank you. Look, yes, there's a lot of work that we need to do as a council and all levels of government and businesses, because what we are seeing now, some of the challenges that retail, entertainment and hospitality businesses are having is that whilst restrictions are easing and people are able to visit these venues and go back about their work reasonably freely, people have now developed new habits, and people are not going out as much as they did before, even if they have not got a fear of COVID. And so anything that we can do to encourage people back out into the community, not only for the economic gain that provides, but also for the social interaction that it provides us as a community, the mental health issues that it helps address when people are engaging with other people, talking about their challenges, talking about their lives, and as we go about our own business, it has a broader impact than just the economic contribution. So we need to continue to do that, bringing people back into the workplace as best that we can, so that we have people using services and facilities in and around the CBD and the suburbs is extremely important. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. With that, we'll put to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? It's carried. Next one is item 5, Central Geelong Marketing Review. Councillor Contell has declared a conflict of interest. And I believe we have an amended motion to move by Councillor Murray, is correct?
That's correct, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder for this one? Councillor Harwood, thank you.
Up there.
It's up there. You're ready to go.
A bit earlier.
Beauty. The floor is yours.
Thank you. This report tonight comes about from a decision that was made in May 2021, and that was to not declare the Central Geelong special rate, which had previously applied to commercial properties in the CBD for the previous 20 years. As well as that, on that night, as part of the resolution, was recommendations for an innovative solutions to create a marketing events and activations program for Central Geelong. Council then allocated $700,000 in last year's budget to continue the marketing activities ahead of a review of the promotion and programs delivered in the area and recommendations for future initiatives. This report is what's before us tonight, delivered by consultants Town Square. It's a good name for this report. So the report recommends a new marketing program for Central Geelong aligned with the city's clever and creative vision and our community plan 21 to 25. It calls for 6 identified precincts within Central Geelong to be highlighted and promoted, delivering equitable benefit to businesses across the city centre. And those precincts are the Mallet Street Green Spine area, the Cultural Quarter, the Waterfront, Murrabble Street, Little Mallet Central, Little Mallet West and Ryrie Street. The report also recommends creating a marketing program that will put its strategic focus on the needs of the people of Geelong first, as these are the people whose choice to spend time in Central Geelong will determine the long-term fortunes of the area and businesses that operate within it. The report found that Geelong residents make up 67% of the spending in Central Geelong. So the marketing should be for Central Geelong address the people of Greater Geelong and the G21 region, those who live, work, shop, play, study and invest in Greater Geelong, and not seek to reach out beyond the municipality. Marketing should deliver promotional activity that generates community engagement with Central Geelong in the form of events, programs, communications that drive participation in the Central Geelong life. And a marketing campaign can only be designed once strategic objectives have been set. So there's a list of strategic objectives in the report. Council funding, and so this is it makes recommendations that the funding be $700,000 for the next 3 budgets. But the amendment sort of takes care of that. It's consideration for the next 2, well, not this one, but the following 2 budgets and key performance indicators. So it's a new approach to looking after the CBD and the marketing within. It's an exciting time. It's a new approach and one that we should be looking forward to. Councillor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Murray. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Just a couple of quick points in relation to it. I think the thing that stands out for me in relation to the report as such, it's about the equity of the funding and how it's been distributed through 6 precincts. I think in the past maybe we've been a little bit too narrow in, I guess, the real hub of the CBD as opposed to what happens around the CBD as well. There are a number of businesses and organisations that they're not looking for, for a lot of money, but they're certainly looking for some money to be spent in and around their precincts, their areas, be it in an environmental way or similar, but lighting, really simple things that sometimes people are looking for. So I really like the idea of having that equity of the distribution of the funding, and also key performance indicators. So actually taking feedback of what has worked, what the community have responded to, and what the traders themselves have also, I guess, drawn attention to the good, the bad and the indifferent. If it's worked, we continue to do it. If it hasn't worked, we can review that and change tack. But I think that's a good way to look at this particular program, is take on board all feedback, as we have done in recent times, about, what is working, what are the community responding to, what are the traders responding to, and continue to work in that vein. If something's not working or hasn't been received positively, be prepared to do a U-turn and discontinue and move on to what we think is going to be best for the CBD, because that is our focus. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Any councillors care to comment? Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Murray and Councillor Harwood. I think what I like about this report is that the recommendation around the function of the Central Geelong marketing is made pretty clear. It should promote activity in and community engagement within Central Geelong. I think that's really key to going forward. The redefined Central Geelong marketing, the way we're going to deliver that, it talks about the form of events by which we will do that. Promotional programs, communications, participation in Central Geelong is really key. I like the way that it talks about that the marketing should not extend to service delivery. That means that it should be solely focused on drawing people to the region, to the CBD, making sure that it's about setting some strategic objectives about what we want to achieve. And I think in relation to the amendment that we've made to the original recommendations, the thing that was key for me is making sure that we can consider this funding going forward after a year of this model, and let it be informed by some key performance indicators and also the marketing strategy going forward. So I'm pleased that we're still delivering this particular marketing, and as Councillor Harwood had said, making sure those precincts have their own focus and their own sort of equitable across those precincts. I think that's really important. But we will continue to look at this project and continue to look at this way of delivering this model consistently over the years and make sure it does have a return on investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Any other councillors care to comment? Councillor Aiken, please.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Sullivan. Yeah, look, this is a better recommendation than what the officers put before us, because the original motion was actually just saying all you have to do is create a marketing strategy, and we're going to give you $700,000 for 3 years, so $2.1 million. So what's been put before us is that Council actually wants some clear performance indicators, and they'll only consider future budget allocations to this particular project if there are some key performance indicators. What we do know, and all of us do support, is that there are significant pockets of tiredness and unattractiveness in the CBD. What hopefully this program is going to do is actually recognise that we have to create and respond to new markets in the CBD. The reality is the newest market is actually residential that's occurring. We're seeing all these tall skyscrapers being built in the CBD, so we have to have a marketing program that actually encourages them to spend in the CBD and not go outside of the CBD. And that means that we do have to try to reduce the number of vacancies. They're way too high in the CBD of Geelong. There are some diamonds among the rough of the CBD. Clearly the West End, Little Mount Street is an absolute diamond, and in fact is extremely attractive on both the state and national level. And there are plans afoot to try to look at other areas and create precincts within the CBD of Geelong. But ultimately, as one major business operator said to me, we have to make the CBD of Geelong a fun and exciting and attractive place for people. And hopefully the people developing this marketing strategy and activation strategy understand that's what we're really attempting to do. We have to return fun to the psyche of people in Geelong about the CBD of Geelong, and if we can do this with this $700,000, we can attract people back in here as either residents or as short-term visitors. And I hope the money is wisely spent. Importantly, we are setting benchmarks, because we're actually saying we want it to come back to us about what is actually being achieved. This shouldn't just be a blank cheque for marketers to go out and spend $700,000. In fact, we want to see what they're trying to achieve and actually have some transparent and accountable performance indicators associated with it. So this recommendation now, with the proposed changes that Councillor Murray has put before the chamber tonight, I'm happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. There's no further councillors to speak. I'll throw back to Councillor Murray to close.
Thank you, and I thank my fellow councillors who have spoken on this matter. Part of the funding, and it's in the report, that the centre of Geelong belongs to all of Geelong. It's so true. And Central Geelong plays a critical role as a focus of the municipality's civic pride, cultural vibrancy and social cohesion. And sometimes you just got to get out there and test the water yourself, and I did that on Saturday night. Went to Karugia for dinner, an iconic Geelong hospitality venue, and finished at the Cellar Door, again another iconic hospitality venue. There's certainly a real buzz about Little Mallet Street, and with these other precincts coming on board now, it'd be great if this particular marketing, Central Geelong marketing, could look at those and make them such a success as what Little Mallet Street is today. Thank you.
Councillor Murray. With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The motion's carried. Now we'll just wait for Councillor Contel to return. Right, thank you. We'll move on now to item number 6, the Port Arlington Recreation Reserve Master Plan, the final plan. Moved by Councillor Mason, and being the only other Ballymore Moor councillor here, I will second that. Councillor Mason, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. And I want to congratulate the officers originally led by Ian Hicks and more recently by Amy Higgs, and staff for the good work that they've done. And I also want to especially note the Port Arlington Reference Group, which had a wide range of stakeholders for their sustained effort and in the consultation and in striving to achieve the best possible master plan for the next 10 years in Port Arlington. And we also actually had strong input from the wider community, where there were 3,350 views on our Have Your Say page, resulting in 289 contributions, and where feedback indicated 88% of survey respondents were supportive or very supportive of the proposed master plan. Mr Deputy Mayor, as you well know, Port Arlington is not designated as a growth area, as is Drysdale and Ocean Grove, so it's likely to retain its current charm of rural and coastal lifestyles, maintaining a small town feel whilst welcoming an influx of holiday makers throughout the holiday and summer seasons. Current population is about 4,050, and it's expected to grow by another 1,100 by 2030, where most of this cohort is expected to be in the retired and older age groups. The Recreation Reserve is a 38-hectare allotment which serves a variety of purposes for community, including sport, recreation, event and environmental uses, and is divided into active and passive areas. Both are highly valued by the community, and as such a balanced approach to their improvement, activation and management has remained. The active and organised sporting contingent is very strong, with tennis, netball, football and cricket all represented. The reserve is also home to Girl Guides and Bellarine Agricultural Society and a popular annual event of the Bellarine Agricultural Show. And we're happy that there'll also be a BMX track, a community garden and a CFA exercise area. So there have been many improvements made during the consultation with great results. A lot of attention has been given to social equity and gender neutral facilities to ensure essential sporting infrastructure components which meet the requirements and expectations of the modern game, and an immediate upgrade to the soundly community constructed football cricket pavilion and an up-to-date kitchen, small extensions to the tennis and netball pavilions and a provision of netball warm-up area, multi-use sporting surfaces, upgrading the cricket practice nets, enabling multi-use opportunities, improvements to safe car parking and vehicle movement, safe pedestrian connectivity throughout, upgraded entrances, improved open and play space, improved tree canopy throughout, and indeed improved lighting, park benches and picnic facilities with spectator seating. So the passive recreation area was subject to an ecological report, and it holds significant environmental and biodiversity values and is located to the west of the active sporting precinct. There are trails and habitat, and it's well utilised by walkers, joggers and nature enthusiasts alike. Recommendations for the passive recreation area aim to improve and protect the reserve's biodiversity, provide passive trail-based opportunities and install wayfinding signage. Mr Deputy Mayor, there were 3 clubs that expressed a desire to designate the passive recreation area for future active sport, as well as a 30-metre buffer zone between it and the oval. The need for this cannot be sufficiently demonstrated, and this must be so before the state and Commonwealth controlling authorities would consider it. Should there be demonstrated need in the future, then this may well be accommodated. Meanwhile, the 10-metre mown buffer will be maintained with emergency and other specified access maintained. So, Mr Deputy Mayor, this is a visionary and widely consulted master plan which actually has received overwhelming support, and I support the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. And certainly support all the words you've spoken. You've described it all quite adequately and very well. So the Port Arlington Recreation Reserve is actually quite a unique area. There's not many townships or parts of our municipality or anywhere else that would have 38 hectares of open space, usable space, sporting clubs, walking areas, and it really is a treasured space which the community is very proud of and very passionate about and wants to protect at all costs. All throughout this process, this has been quite a long process, and I'm actually incredibly proud of the amount of consultation, how much the community has put into officers, into councillors, and how it's been reciprocated as well. There's been lots of negotiations, lots of toing and froing, and we've finally reached a product which I believe is the optimum outcome out of this entire process. It'll protect long areas of the recreation reserve for many years to come. It'll encourage growth and redevelopment of facilities within it to be used by, whilst not an area that is a growth area, but the surrounding townships have been high growth areas for quite a while now. And these are still members of the Bellarine community and the Greater Geelong community, which will be utilising these assets which we're coming to build and revamp. So I'm very happy to second this motion and support everything that Councillor Mason has just said, but I'll put out there for any other councillors who wish to comment as well. If not, Councillor Grisbeck, please.
Just quickly, Deputy Mayor, I think it's one of the most interesting master plans that I've seen for quite some time. The conflict between, I call it conflict, but a conflict between sporting and passive and environmental. I think what you've, like we often say that there is a lot more need for sporting facilities, so I'll park that particular piece aside, but I think it's one of the best forged plans in terms of both addressing the environmental and the sporting needs of the community. So a credit to the team pulling that together, because not all of the master plans for sporting precincts have that environmental overlay with which they need to be cognizant of. So I think it was a great report to read, and it's a good indicator of what we would need in the future in terms of master plans in particular areas like the Bellarine. Thank you.
Very true. Well noted, Councillor Gusbeck. There's no other councillors to comment. I'll throw back to Councillor Mason to close.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. And yes, there's certainly been a great deal of enthusiastic community input, and as Councillor Sullivan said, many deliberations to get to this point. And that's the beauty of community consultation and engagement. And it will satisfy the needs for the next 10 years, when of course it'll be reviewed again. And we do note that the city's allocated $1,157,000 for this year's budget. And of course, if it passes tonight, we can get right on with the job. And we do note as well that projections into the future for this master plan are of the order of $16,305,000. So there's a lot of work to get on with fundraising as well as construction. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. With that, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? The item is carried. Item number 7, Amendment C391 GGEE, Ash Road East Leopold rezoning. Consideration of panel report and adoption of amendment. Moved by Councillor Mason, and I will second this one as well. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. I won't repeat the item number, but the amendment and permit are consistent with the Leopold structure plan and for the future urban growth of the southeastern area of Leopold in Ash Road. It primarily rezones the advertised land in Ash Road, Leopold from a farming zone to a general residential zone Schedule 1, and it applies a design and development overlay to the land. Planning Permit 39/2019 allows the stage subdivision of the properties 87 to 101 and 103 to 127 Ash Road only. This amendment was exhibited last year in May-June and received 29 submissions, which related to a variety of issues such as impact on the Lake Connewarre, stormwater and the form of the development. Council considered these in September and referred them to an independent panel to be appointed by the Minister. The panel found the amendment overwhelmingly in order, though it recommended one change to the design and development overlay and to the form of the planning permit to be adopted by Council. The City supports the panel's recommendations, and so I recommend we adopt it and submit it to the Minister as described in the attachments and request final approval.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. I certainly endorse the words you've stated on this item. It is very important that we note a few topics on this item right here. First of all, we are considering the panel report, which was adopted by the independent panel, especially on relations to the form of residential development and impacts on the surrounding area by stormwater, particularly on Lake Connewarre, which is somewhere which is particularly important considering it is a Ramsar wetland. And as we have growth to the south with Sparrowvale, it's important that we do take into account what the stormwater does heading from the Leopold area as well from the north. But the independent panel did find that the development was consistent with the 2013 Leopold structure plan. The panel recommended that we adopt the amendment with one change to the design, development and the development overlays. And the recommendation as well, which is very prudent, that it delivers social and affordable housing on site. A major battle we're fighting at the moment with the state government and ourselves is how we handle social housing and how we implement affording housing for our community going forwards. We know housing stress is a great issue for our residents right now, and it's not going away anytime soon. But as well, the developers will also be required naturally to make a contribution to our community infrastructure projects within the Leopold area. So the development, DCPs, will be going back into Leopold Township. Another item I'd like to raise is just that whilst the Ballerine housed much of the growth over the last 15 years in terms of residents for the city of Greater Geelong, this council did great work in 2018 with implementing town boundaries and implementing a settlement strategy to move that growth away from the Ballerine. We heard from the residents that the townships had grown enough and that boundaries needed to be protected. But one way where there is still that growth to be had is the Leithbog community, and we do find people finding it very hard for their children, for the adult children, to rebuy within the local townships, with prices going up and housing scarcity actually becoming a bit of an issue. So this is one area where this development has been identified as appropriate and warranted. So I'm very happy to second this motion, Councillor Mason. Any councillors care to weigh in on this one? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Mason to close.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. And yes, Leopold is a designated growth zone, and this development is within that. And as Deputy Mayor Sullivan mentioned, there are two Section 173 agreements, which are really quite important, especially important to us in that we are taking a quantum leap, we hope, in social housing. And social housing is addressed, I won't go through all the details, but social housing is addressed through one of the 173 agreements, and I'm really pleased about that. And a second 173 agreement also ensures land is developed and included defined open space drainage basins, roundabout extension to be signalled, intersection and so on. So there's a few things there, including another $40,000 which needs to be considered per net developable hectare. So all of this comes back to developer contributions in the light of improved infrastructure and social housing. So I endorse the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Item carried. Item number 8, Amendment C427GGEE, Goandra Estate Ocean Grove Fencing Design Guidelines and Proposed Planning Scheme Amendment. Moved by Councillor Mason, and I'll second this one as well. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. Goandra Estate lies north of Thacker Street in Ocean Grove and close to Yellow Gums Reserve, where there is a general high-quality ambience to the natural environment. Housing in this estate has generally fitted the intention of an open vista, where the bushland its views are often unimpeded by solid boundary fencing. Indeed, precious yellow gums abound in this area, and it's a haven for birds and other wildlife. The proposed planning scheme amendment for Goandra Estate Ocean Grove is intended to resolve an anomaly in planning regulations where the city has been unable to approve or otherwise planning applications for the construction of fences. The original subdivision plan allowed posted wire fencing without a permit, so to foster the ambience of this open bushland setting. However, the anomaly became apparent when other fencing could be installed with a permit, and that planning provision elsewhere might also support other types of fencing. The issue was exacerbated about 5 years ago when fencing other than posted wire have been constructed without permission, and in other cases applications have remained unresolved. So the city has since commissioned a review which attempts to resolve the technical planning anomalies with this amendment. It attempts to respect the original open fencing intention and provide a way forward where issues of privacy, security and amenity must also be considered as a matter of planning norms. In general, the proposed DDO and guidelines seek to discourage suburban-style solid fencing in favour of open-style post and wire rail fencing, except in specific circumstances, for example, privacy and security. The primary focus is on managing front fences and fences that are proximate to the bushland reserves and maintaining this open character. To simplify the matters, this DDO removes the need for planning permit for certain types of fences where requirements are met and that have less impact on the character of the estate. So it's intended that this is subject to ministerial approval, and the amendment will be exhibited for 6 weeks so that all stakeholders can have their input. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Very well said. Fencing doesn't often sound like the most exciting item, but in these areas north of Thacker Street, which are low-density residential areas in the bushlands, it is actually quite important because restrictions on how we have the fences in those areas can create or disprove, really, of a sense of the openness, the impact on the natural bushland, which wildlife can and cannot communicate through these areas, and it really impedes on what is the dominant characteristic of these areas, which is the bushland feel. But Councillor Mason is quite correct that this is recommendation that will be, if it's endorsed, to endorse the preparation exhibition of the amendment, which will become part of the Greater Geelong planning scheme. And we're really asking to request the Minister for Planning to authorise the preparation exhibition of the amendment for 6 weeks, as noted. Do any other councillors wish to comment on this item? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Mason to close.
Nothing further to add, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. With that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. Item number 9, tender T220050, Arboricultural Services, Reactive Tree Maintenance and Health, moved by Councillor Maloney, seconded by Councillor Mason. Councillor Maloney.
Thank you. This is a tender which asks to consider the establishment of contracts with respect to tree maintenance, one of my favourite topics. This requires a series of new suppliers to maintain trees on our road reserves and also council-managed land. This contract brings together a number of tenderers to support the in-house team in our maintenance of these trees. And the contract also includes increased workloads such as storm events, when tree branches are fallen down, also when specialised equipment or skills are required of an arboricultural service. And so the panel enables us to garner the extra expertise that we might need on an ad hoc basis and provide other options that we might not already be afforded. The contract is, the services are around $650,000 each year, and over the full total of 6 years, this is quite a significant investment. I'll leave some further details for other Councillor Mason to comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. And yes, it's. I suppose we've all been reminded recently of when we had those terribly strong winds and there was so much damage done. And I really do have to commend our council officers and all the staff who responded to that. It was really well done. But we also understand and understood that our capacity at certain times can be overwhelmed. And this is one of the purposes of this panel, to have that depth of capacity. One disappointing thing is that we've only got one local contractor that actually applied. So we'll have to do some more work in the future to encourage local contractors to make their applications. But in this circumstance, it's also understood that all the local contractors during these emergencies were overwhelmed themselves. But we have discussed this, and we will be looking at other methods to try and attract local participation, local businesses to enter a panel, and I think we'll have an opportunity at a later date to review this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other councillors care to comment? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Maloney to finish.
Thank you. With respect to our tree maintenance, it's also a really interesting point to raise that we have Geelong Data Exchange as part of our council website, which includes a whole bunch of data on trees that council maintain. So for those data nerds out there, please come along and visit our website to find out the different tree hollows, different species, and the wide variety of native trees that we maintain on council land. Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. And with that, we'll go that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Item carried. Item number 10, tender T220054 tree supply, moved by Councillor Nelson, seconded by Councillor Maloney. Councillor Nelson, please.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. This tender is allocated for the 1 million trees project, which was a project that I put as my number one list back in the previous council, I think, from memory. I think I remember Councillor Harwood, former Councillor Manane and I had to put our list together, and that was certainly my number one project. So it's good to see a couple of years later that we're getting these trees done, although because of the nature of the size of the amount of trees that will be planted across the municipality, we need to do a formal tender process. So this is just to announce that tender process, and as soon as those trees are in the ground, the better off Geelong will be for its increased tree canopy and overall coolness in our area. I'll let Councillor Maloney speak further to it. And other councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Maloney, please.
With respect to the Million Trees project, this is something that's going to contribute massively to our mitigation of heat island in our region. So as we do lay more footpaths, we need to mitigate some of the heat that comes off those. And it's great to see these tenderers, 9 of those are going to be supplying a variety of species that our possums and other different fauna can get up into and enjoy. And also, please note that as this rolls out, we'll also be monitoring those trees on the aforementioned database. So this is estimated to cost approximately $2.4 million over the full 6 years, and they will reap immense benefits in not only carbon drawdown. Apologies if the sound is cutting out. I've heard also someone texted me that it's cutting out on the live stream, so hopefully you can lip read. The immense contribution to carbon drawdown and also installation of trees for the beautification of our streets is a commitment that the City of Greater Geelong has made over the next few years to align with our sustainability framework and our environmental strategy. So keen to see these trees shading us for all of our years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Any other councillors care to make comment? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Nelson to close.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. Not much further other than to say that hopefully we'll plant the right trees in the right places. I think we've learnt. You would have thought we would have learnt by now, but I've seen trees planted across driveways that aren't used on corner lots, so perhaps we've still got a lot more to learn. But hopefully we can work with the state government and remove all the power poles throughout the municipality. I know that Armstrong Creek certainly doesn't have power poles up there, so because you drive down some streets, I can think of Pakenham Street in Newtown, where they have trees and they're just shorn off at the top, just so they don't interact with the power poles. Perhaps we should remove the power poles and just let the trees grow. But hopefully that'll get done in the next few years.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. All right, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Item carried. Item number 11, Forest Green Stage 1, revocation of flood-prone area designation on new lots, moved by Councillor Maloney, seconded by Councillor Nelson. Councillor Maloney.
Thank you. With respect to this revocation of flood-prone area designation, it's incredibly crucial now to talk about some of the works that Council undertake with respect to the budget allocation, asset renewal, making sure that we not only install the right drains in the right areas, but ensure that in the case of a major storm event that our community is protected and that we are ensuring that the 1 in 100 year floods do not occur to damage our property and causes harm in our community, but I'll leave that for other councillors to comment on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Councillor Nelson?
Nothing further, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Deb? Councillor Maloney to close.
Thank you. I'm surprised to hear that there's not a deluge of excitement about the revocation of flood-prone areas. I thought I'd have to slip one in there, but nothing further. Thank you.
Councillor Maloney, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Item carried. Item number 12, Armstrong, Mount Dunedin, Stage 33, revocation of flood-prone area. Moved by Councillor Nelson, seconded by Councillor Harwood. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Like the previous one, this is to revoke the council designation of the flood-afflicted land. For those of you in the gallery and those playing at home, Stage 33 in Mount Dunedin, just off Torquay Road, right where the old runway used to be, which was Grovedale Airport. So it's right there. I can't say I've ever seen a flood there, but this will ensure that that these people aren't subject to the flood-prone overlay and make their insurance a bit more expensive. So it'll help all the people in Oasis Drive. Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Any other councillors care to comment? If not, Councillor Nelson to close.
Nothing further, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Item carried. Item number 13, the Point Stage 8, revocation of flood-prone area. Moved Councillor Mason, and I'm happy to second this one. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sullivan. On the western fringe of Geelong is the Point development, and land at that point, at the Point Stage 8, was designated in the year 2001 to be flood-prone. So we've done the work now, and it's been completed on the parent lot at Chighton Way, and the original lot liable to flooding is no longer liable to an average of 1 in 100-year flood, and so now normal development works can be undertaken. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. I'll only add that this area of the Bellarine does have some very strong environmental areas around it, so it is important that we do get this right, and I do believe we have that before us. Any other councillors that care to comment? Councillor Mason to close.
Nothing further to add, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Item carried. Item number 14, Ashbury Estate, Stage 16A, revocation of flood-prone area, to be moved by Councillor Harwood, seconded by Councillor Maloney. Yep, Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Again, just the revocation of the flood-prone area to allow the premises there to have better insurance opportunities, and also to hopefully the works done will mitigate any flooding through the area. But as we see, that is a guess, but we're doing our best. Thank you.
Councillor Harwood. Councillor Maloney.
I think that's quite a good summary. Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harwood to close. Oh, sorry, another councillor. Councillor Grisby.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It's probably just a point in relation to all flood-prone revocations. We do sort of skip through them quite quickly, but as we've seen in many other places around Australia, and especially, seeing a report most recently on Lismore and around the flood, the flood-prone area that they're in, it is really important that we get these right. And I know that we do skip over them, but I just wanted to flag that this is the important part of the work that we're taking out, because the infrastructure has been put in to allow that stormwater to be taken away. We're not just taking revocations of flood-prone areas away. And I just got a message from a community member saying, why are you revocating all of these flood zones? And I think what we're saying is that the infrastructure is now there that will mitigate those potential flood risks. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
It is well noted, Councillor Grisbeck, that you are correct. We are not just repealing flood-prone revocations with nothing behind it. It is the end result of the work and the infrastructure being placed. So therefore, the zoning is changed or it's revocated. Any councillors comment on that one? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. And further to Councillor Grisbeck was saying, and this water will eventually go into the Sparrowvale wetlands, which will eventually go into Lake Conowari. So it's a win-win for everybody because it helps the environment as well. So rather than the water just pooling across those paddocks, or what were paddocks, it goes where it's needed to go. And this is probably the smallest revocation I've seen. It's about 10 lots. I think it's probably the smallest we've ever seen. So, but good for the people of Kempsey Walk.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
We'll also note that it's not just about the movement of water, but we actually do make sure that we have a high-quality flow of water into these environmentally sensitive areas. Councillor Contell.
And everyone else is talking about floodplain areas. In contrast to that, what we've seen in the past, where we have had flood-prone overlays, and there's not really a necessity for them, can cost developers and those upgrading their properties thousands and thousands of dollars, raising their property levels in order to deal with floods that may not occur. So it is important work, as you say, taking them off and applying them.
Councillor Contell. Any councillors care to comment? We'll go to Councillor Harwood to close.
Look, no, they're all valid comments, and it is on a topic that is very relevant, and we're seeing globally the issues with flooding in a whole range of unexpected areas at unexpected times, unexpected levels. I mean, that's just the world we're in. And we're seeing through Armstrong Creek as a great example. It took us a little while to really appreciate the issue and the cost involved, and now we see these revocation matters coming through, and they will continue for, I'd say, forever and a day now while we develop any particular parcel of land. No doubt the Northern Western Growth Zone, it'll be the same in a few years' time. The councillors of the day will be doing exactly what we're doing in the south, and making sure that the mitigation work is done to the best of its ability. There's always, the risk will always be there, regardless. But we just continue to do the work as best we can and make sure that the residents who purchase their land and build their dream house are protected as best as possible. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Harwood. With that, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Item carried. Item number 15, updates to instruments of delegation. To be moved by Councillor Grisbeck, seconded by Councillor Contell. Councillor Grisbeck, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. With the Local Government Act changing now nearly 2 years ago, it just provides that we need to do a review of the instrument of delegations. The review has been conducted, and there is some slight changes to the CEO's delegation, which is really the only delegation outside of planning that we would do, which is appropriate. The only changes that I can see on this document is around the position titles and review of the delegations in the Food Act, and removing some of the provisions under the Residential Tenancies Act that can be sub-delegated by the CEO. So it is a good thing to be reviewing these particular delegations and authorisations, and I think everything is in order at this point. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Contell.
Just add to it ever so slightly, again, a bit of housekeeping, but certainly important work, because this document here, when applied appropriately, allows the wheels of business in local government, particularly here at City of Greater Geelong, to continue to turn, so that we don't get bogged down in unnecessary authority levels put in place. So it's an instrument to allow those wheels of business to continue to turn, as I've said. I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Contell. Now the councillors care to comment? I'll throw back to Councillor Grisbeck to close.
Deputy Mayor, just to note that the instrument of delegation to the CEO is quite lengthy, some 100 pages, Mr. CEO. So I'm glad that we do have a review. There is a lot to make sure. Just to note that the Audit and Risk Committee do make sure that there is compliance with this particular authorisation and delegation, and you'll see that often through the Audit and Risk Committee being scrutinised, which is a good thing. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. With that, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Item carried. With that finishes up section B, so we'll move into section C, notices of motion. Now, Councillor Aiken, I believe you have a notice of motion in regards to the Northern Aquatic Community Hub Community Liaison Reference Group. Thank you, Councillor Aiken, for presenting this notice of motion tonight. Do you have a seconder to consider this notice of motion? Councillor Grisbeck, thank you. Councillor Aiken, over to you.
I'd like to move the notice of motion, yeah.
You have the floor.
Got a seconder?
Yep, just go a seconder.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, look, this is self-explanatory. Kylie and I have been trying for nearly over 12 months now to get a community liaison reference group established associated with the Northern Aquatic and Community Hub. It's actually our largest project, community investment project in tonight. In fact, we've added an extra $4 million to the value of that project to take it up $65.6 million. And this notice of motion also gives clear intent that the council does wish Councillors Grisbeck and Aiken to be members of that liaison committee as well too. Look, all of us are in agreement, both officers and councillors, that it will add value in terms to this particular project for its during the construction period, and I look forward to gaining the support of the majority of councillors to be able to give instructions to the council officers, and the CEO to establish the group as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, and thanks, Councillor Aiken, for bringing this notice of motion, which I'm very pleased to second. I think what we've shown is that the community out in the northern suburbs are very passionate people. Not saying that other people around the city of Greater Geelong aren't, but I know that Anthony and I represent the northern parts of Geelong, Cry, Norlane, Lara, everywhere around there, and they want to be involved and have say in their community facilities. And I think, both Anthony and I are on community advisory panels for Chisholm Road Prison Precinct, which is a state government project. There are Spirit of Tasmania terminal reference groups. There are other groups by which the community can have their say. And I think what we're saying here is one of the biggest investments that council is making in the northern parts of Geelong, and we're really pleased, if that's possible, to have community reference groups liaising with us and helping us to really drive this project right through to the end. This particular project, in terms of the Northern Aquatic Hub, is linked very closely with the Barwon Health North project, of which had a community reference group, and it worked hand in hand with the state government, and it's provided a massive outcome for the northern area. It has been a real engagement with the local community, and the local community have been very pleased the way that that reference group has provided direct engagement on construction issues, education of the projects, naming recommendations for facilities, etc. So I look forward, if this is supported, to being part of that community liaison reference group. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Grisbeck. And the councillors care to comment? If not, I'll throw back to Councillor Aiken to close.
Further to add, Acting Mayor Sullivan.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. With that, put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Notice of motion carried. Well done. All right, with that, we'll move into section D, record of informal meetings of councillors. Can I please have a mover? Councillor Grisbeck, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor Harwood, thank you. All those in favour?
Deputy Mayor, might I just quickly add before we pass this, thank you to the officers for taking up the recommendation around apologies in there, and thank you, that's now noted in the report.
Yep.
Thank you,
noted.
Deputy.
Thank you. All right, all those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. Section E, planning delegations. Please have a mover for this one. Councillor Harwood, thank you. Seconded. Councillor Grisbeck. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. Section F, confidential. Now, item 6.1 is the Audit and Risk Committee Summary Report. Can I please have a mover to move this into confidential? Moved by Councillor Grisbeck.
Could we not have it on the screen?
Sorry? Or let it be considered in confidential. And I have that seconded by Councillor Murray. Thank you. All those in favour of that? Thank you. All those against? Carried. The second item for confidential is the CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee, independent member appointment. Can we please have a mover for this? Councillor Maloney, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Grisbeck. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. Well, we will now to consider the remaining agenda items in our confidential section of the meeting. So for that, I have to close the meeting to the public. Can I please have a mover to close the meeting to the public? Moved by Councillor Harwood, seconded by Councillor Mason. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Carried. Now I'd like to thank both our virtual and our in-person gallery members this evening. Thank you for participation. It's great to have members of the public back in the gallery once again, so thank you for your commitment this evening. And thank you to everybody online as well. Good evening.